ultimate, well, I have one objective. I want you to walk away learning something. I actually don't care what it is you learn. The fact that you're here already is a good sign, which means you're absorbing your surroundings, you're taking advantage of opportunities that are presented to you on campus. So you're off to a good start, and I commend you for it. But the three things I'm going to attempt to do, if you look at the title Engineering Meets Business, it's kind of a broad phrase. So I want you to, the first phase of this, I'm just going to talk a little bit about engineering in the world as it exists today, and just try to get you to think a little bit differently about things you see every day in your normal life. Then I'll share with you a little bit about Stryker and what we're doing in the world of medical devices and how engineering and business collide in our world and my world every day. And then I want to take it down to a level to you personally and try to get to a story that'll resonate with you, since you're all engineering students, or most of you are, I would assume, and at some point you're going to be looking to get a job. This phrase should have a special meaning for you, and we'll try to tap into what that is. I also like to thank Moose. I think it's amazing that we have talented alumni that have the ability to give back in multiple ways, both in time, financially, and to be able to put this on for you guys is a huge opportunity to strengthen the alumni network. And I've met with some of you already today. We had a long day of meetings, and it was amazing just to take the time to sit down and talk to students and try to ease some of the concerns you may have about the future and the unknowns, and just share with you my experiences and what I've done to become successful in this world. So I'm here on behalf of the opportunity that Moose provided. Real excited to share with you my thoughts on the topic. So engineering is around you all day, every day. Sometimes you might see it, and sometimes you might not. And so what I want you to do is just think about all the things that you do on a daily basis. I started to think about this talk, started to think about, well, where is engineering out in the world? What examples could I come up with? So I started thinking about it, and I thought about these products. Depending on your age, some of them you may have never seen before, like a Walkman or a flip phone. But can anybody tell me what all of these things have in common? Because they were all engineering feats in and of themselves for the time that they were developed. But now you can get them all in this. How many people have a smartphone? That's business, right? Everybody buys a smartphone. Do you know how much money Apple is worth? Do you know how many millions of smartphones, iPhones, they sell? And that's because they had the ability, the engineering wherewithal, to take a bunch of products that have absolutely nothing to do with each other, like a level, and put it in a phone, or enable that technology to occur. If you just think about it, think about the little things in your life that you buy, you consume, your headphones. I'm sure you guys listen to music. Think about how they get that music to come into your ears, and look at the market demands of the different types of headphones that are out there and how much money we spend just so we can listen to our music in our personal way whenever we want to. So I started to think about other things I do a lot. I travel a lot with my job. This is kind of my home away from home. And you say, okay, aerospace engineering, ton of engineering going into this airplane, right? I mean, the fact that we can take off and fly across the world is pretty powerful. But who's been on an airplane in the last 6 months, year, ever? All right, good. What about the inside? How many people have sat in their airplane seat and go, why do I not have any space? Why are my knees in my jaw? Right? Now, if you travel a lot, maybe you get up into the premium section and you get an extra 3 inches and you think life's great. But if you're in the back, near the bathroom, you're crunched. But if you're thinking about where engineering meets business, you might say, why can't the airline industry just make planes that are a little bit bigger and give us all a whole lot more room? But if you think about it, this is probably a great example of a math problem of how do you optimize the size of your craft to get the most people from point A to point B, given the weight of the aircraft, the cost of fuel, all the things that go, the manufacturing process. This is not by accident that you have the amount of space that you have in the airplane. So there's engineering. You can look at all the outside elements of the airplane, but right smack in front of you. But if you just get on the airplane and you sit there and you listen to your headphones or you're playing on your iPhone, you're not thinking about it. You might miss an example of where engineering has met business, because that's how the airline industry is so successful. They're able to optimize getting people from point A to point B. So then I thought, well, maybe people might not resonate with iPhones, doubtful, or airplanes, but you've seen this before as the #1 party school in the country. Proud to see that. And undergrads, you can put your earmuffs on if you need to. Do you think there's engineering here? I wasn't very good at fluids, but I thought this was really cool.
The best place to see Josh Springer's addiction is at a ball game, but away from the action.
How simple is the technology? It's very simple. It's very simple.
To fully appreciate it, you need to have two traits. One, you hate standing in line. Two, you have an affinity for beer.
I got blood regular. I got Michelob Ultra. I'm not going to event waiting to be on. I paid good money for the seats.
So just to prove to himself it can be done,
They really feel like I was crazy.
he set out to end the beer line forever. It's a dispenser that pulls the beer from the bottom up. The speed is something to behold. Springer says he holds an unofficial world record for pouring 56 beers in 1 minute. His videos on YouTube have gone viral.
Why do you think people get so excited to see that beer float up in the bottom? That's a great question, but I still kind of give it an icing happen too. It just kind of captivates me.
So how do you feel like beer up in the bottom? Well, as a man's perspective, there's a hole in the bottom of the cup. But the key to making all of this work is with this, a simple magnet. So when you put the cup on here, the magnet is suspended, and when the liquid comes in, and then
Right, the liquid comes in from around the holes underneath the magnet.
once the beer is filled, just grab the cup, and the magnet forms a perfect seal with a tin ring embedded in the cup.
What do people do with the magnets on the bottom? They take them and put them on your fridge.
Which leads to Springer's second great idea. Get advertisers to put their logos on the magnet. There is, though, the occasional incident, with those wondering what's up with the Springer's magnet.
Don't do that.
The bottoms-up dispenser with 4 nozzles costs $3,400. But Springer says most of his profit comes from the cups. Right now, the system can only be found in a few major venues. Thomas and Mack Center in Las Vegas.
How simple is that? Who thought you could engineer a cup of beer? Right. So it doesn't need to be complex. That's the kind of fluids I can understand. But taking something very simple, and he set out to solve a problem. You could argue it's not one of the biggest problems we have in the world, waiting in line for beer. Turning it into a huge business opportunity, and then being able to leverage that to sell licensed things on a little magnet. I mean, it just starts to think about everything you do, everything that's around you. There's probably some form of engineering that's gone into it, and there's an opportunity to make a business out of it. So let's talk a little bit about what I do know more about, the healthcare and medical device industry. So Stryker is a part of that, and we'll get into more detail about who Stryker is and what we do. I don't expect you to read these slides, but the world is changing. We spend an enormous amount of money on healthcare in the United States, to the tune of $2.3 trillion. What you can see up here is these are other countries and their spend at a hospital per day versus the U.S. This other graph talks about the U.S. healthcare spending as a percentage of GDP. our gross domestic product, and it's through the roof. Almost 20% of our GDP is spent on healthcare. Now, you can look at that two ways. You look and say, we are on a pathway to disaster because there's no way to sustain it. Or you could say, even if we reduce that significantly, there is still an enormous amount of money spent in healthcare. And if you have the engineering capabilities and the ability to come up with new ideas, you can do extremely well in healthcare because we're all human. We're all going to break down over time. We're all going to need to be fixed. So having to play a role in doing that is huge from our standpoint. So I threw some things up there. If you are interested in healthcare, if you're interested in bioengineering, there's things going on in the world, the Affordable Care Act. You should hear about that when you hear about elections. Accountable care organizations. Our customers, Stryker's customers, are hospitals, surgeons. They're about to be measured differently than they ever have in the past, and it's going to influence how successful they are and how profitable they are. Bundled payments. The world is starting to change as to how people are getting paid. Instead of getting paid for every little thing that happens, the payers within healthcare are going to just give a lump sum. And the people that are really good at managing their business, they'll be just fine. The people that are not good at managing their business, it's not going to cover it, and they'll probably go out of business. So what are we looking at? We're looking at hospital consolidation, pricing pressure, and certainly the government's tried to do its part to ease the burden by taxing medical device companies like Stryker, which has a negative impact from our perspective on being able to innovate and drive engineering through our business, because a 2.3% tax imposed on a company like Stryker is essentially $100 million a year that goes to the government to help fund. So there's a bit of a crisis going on in healthcare, but I'm proud to be a part of a company like Stryker that's coming up with solutions to address that. And what's interesting, talking about engineering meets business, you talk about Stryker. 75 years we've been in existence, and our company was started by a surgeon, Dr. Homer Stryker. His first invention was a wedge turning frame in 1937 to essentially assist patients that were immobilized in the hospital and were getting blood clots or skin problems. So it was a rotating bed. And they developed their second product, which was a cast cutter, which back in 1946 was really difficult to take a cast off of somebody, and that was the second instrument. This is Dr. Stryker some years later, but the quote is what I want you to focus on, because this is what our company has been built on from the get-go. If your tools don't work, make them work. If you can't make them work, make some that do work. Think about it. How many things in your life do you look at and you might complain about or that you just don't think work well? Where are there opportunities for you to take advantage of that and change it, particularly with the education that you're getting here at Syracuse? So I wanted to share with you a little bit about Stryker, who we are. Fortune 500 wise, we're number 306. So Fortune 500 is the largest companies in the world. So we're roughly the 300th largest company in the world. Generating $9 billion in sales last year. 25,000 employees worldwide. We're operating in over 100 countries. We have 37 manufacturing and R&D locations worldwide, 5,200 patents, and the one we're probably most proud of is 34 consecutive years of growing our business, which is not something many companies, I think there's an extremely short list, if any, in the world that have been able to sustain that level of growth over the years. So how do we do it? Well, we buy into a mission, and this drives everything we do. Together with our customers, we're driven to make healthcare better. It sounds simple, but again, we're built on innovation. We thrive on innovation. We're about putting new products out there, but we can't do it in a vacuum. So if you start to look at where engineering meets business, it's connecting with your customer. It's understanding what challenges they face. It's about how can you work with them to solve a bigger issue. So we're standing for something much more than just trying to drive revenue and increase sales. And we have certain values that we adhere to that we let our customers know about, so they know that when they're working with a company like Stryker, that there's integrity behind what we do. We're accountable to what we say we're going to do. We care about our people, and we grow and develop the talented people in the organization. And we also measure ourselves. We measure what we say we're going to do, and we hold ourselves accountable. So, what do we do? So, as mentioned, I'm part of the HIP team. I run half of our HIP portfolio globally. So, this is one of my products up here, and so our HIP business is roughly 15% of that $9 billion. So about $1.4 billion business is in hips. If you combine it with knees, that's slightly larger. These two circles right here, hips and knees, is about a third of all our business in the world comes from our hip and knee portfolio. But we also have several other implants. We do a lot of work with trauma and upper extremities, lower extremities, foot and ankle implants, sports medicine, joint preservation, orthobiologics. We kind of own the continuum from when someone starts to have issues with their joints all the way through to them having osteoarthritis and needing some form of replacement. There's a whole other section of our business that's in the operating room. Power tools, computer-assisted surgery, beds, stretchers, and then you get into really cool stuff, neurotechnology and spine, so spine replacement, CMF, craniomaxillofacial, basically huge head trauma patients. We create custom cranial implants to restore the skull that gets destroyed in these horrific accidents. So we have a broad, diverse portfolio. So we cover everything from the minute you get into the hospital with the stretcher onto the hospital bed. In the operating room, that's kind of our core. That's where we love to play. We dominate the market in terms of offering a breadth of products, whether it's these surgical tools here, all the implants we offer surgeons to put in, the computer-assisted surgery, and we've recently acquired a company that allows us to do robotic surgery now. So those are fun to wheel into the OR. And then even when you get out of the OR, we have products in the hospital that make sure that patients are getting the care that they need. So we're kind of everywhere in the hospital. And how do we do it? We do it through investing in R&D. So last year we invested $536 million in R&D. It's about 6% of our total sales. So again, engineering and business, we don't survive, our business does not survive if we're not investing in innovation, if we're not driving significant investments in R&D to make that happen. And as a result, we have over 5,000 patents that protect the intellectual property that we have that allows us to be and stay competitive in the market. So let's talk about how we do that. What does it look like? So I talked about engineering and business, talking about knowing your customer. Well, healthcare is very complex. You can argue our customer is the patient, because at the end of the day, particularly the products that I own, go inside the patient, and they're walking around with that product for the next 20, 30 years. You could argue it's the surgeon, because he's the one, for the most part, that's making the decision what implants you'd like to use, and he's the one that's actually using them in the OR. You could say it's the hospital, because they're essentially on the hook for the procedure. They're the ones paying for it. They're facilitating it and figuring out how to drive the cost of that procedure to a level that they can afford as they provide health care to the patients. And then you have the payers. The largest payer in our business is actually the government, because the majority of our patients for hips and knees are on Medicare. So the single largest payer that we deal with is the government. And then you have all the insurance companies, because essentially that's how we get paid, through the insurance company or through the government. So that's a very complex customer stream. And you have to understand all of those customers, what's important to them, so that we're delivering products that'll resonate with all of them, so we have the ability to be successful. That the payers actually want to pay for the technology that we're offering, like a $1 million robot that we're selling. Someone's going to have to pay for that. So what's the value proposition that we can offer the payers or the hospital or the surgeon or even the patients where they're going to go and ask for it so that we can push the ball forward because it might be a more efficient procedure. It might allow surgeons to be more accurate in their surgical placement of components. So you have to understand your customer. So I try to put in two little streams here, one representing the engineering side of the business and the other one kind of representing the business areas that we need to focus on to ensure we're going to be successful. So VOC, voice of the customer, we just talked about that. You translate that into your design inputs. What is it you're actually trying to create? What is that engineering going to deliver? But you can't do it in a vacuum. You have to know how to manufacture it. You look at a company like Stryker, we mass produce hundreds of thousands of implants a year. So our engineers can't come up with something that is too expensive to make or it takes too long to make or it doesn't enable us to make hundreds of thousands of them. So there's a whole element to that engineering that comes into the business aspect of it. And really just defining what those design specifications are. In parallel, you have marketing people trying to identify the opportunity. Is it worth our time to invest in an innovation or a solution if it's not going to make a difference in the market? If the opportunity doesn't support what it is we're trying to do. So we have to funnel everything through a financial plan. What's the return on investment? How important is it for the company to have this new product? Because at the end of the day, as a publicly traded company, although we want to do what's right for the patients, we want to do what's right for healthcare, we need to stay in business in order to fulfill that commitment. And the only way to do that is to continue to make our shareholders happy. So we have certain metrics we have to hit in order for the business to continue to be successful. So it comes down to COGS, or cost of goods. How much does it cost us to make a product, and how much can we sell it for? I talked about this earlier, but the difference between that is your profit. And Wall Street and the financial analysts care about how profitable are you at delivering on the promises that you put out there. So if there's one thing you take away from this piece of it is engineering's great because you essentially can start with a blank canvas. You can come up with really cool ideas and really innovative ways to solve problems. But if it's going to be successful in a market, in a capitalistic society, it needs to be able to generate revenue, and it actually needs to be profitable. Otherwise, you're going to run into trouble. So I wanted to share with you a little bit the different types of roles that exist in industry, because it's not just we have engineers. There's so many different kinds of engineers. You have product development engineers, product support engineers, program management, where I started my career, quality engineers, packaging, manufacturing, the list goes on and on. Talking with some students earlier, there's leadership roles in R&D that are extremely important to the success of the company that come from people with engineering degrees. So a VP of R&D or management throughout an R&D organization is vetted in engineering. You don't have to have influence in the organization, you don't have to go into marketing and do things outside of engineering. There's absolutely opportunities to be successful at a high level in an organization with an engineering degree. And those are just pictures of our cool new robot that we bought that we're playing with in the OR now. So who wants a job? That's a good sign. What if I told you, I'm not offering one today, sorry. Although think about it, if I told you guys I had one job right now, how many of you could honestly sit in the seat you're sitting in today and can say, I've done everything I could possibly do for this moment that would differentiate me from everybody else in this room, where I would be the one that could get that job? All right, you got one. That's confidence, and that's great. But think about it. How much are you investing in your career today to be ready for that opportunity tomorrow? Because you don't know when it's going to come. Because I would argue, I talked about this a little bit earlier, you already have a job. There's just one problem. You're not getting paid. All right? You're a startup. Think of yourself as a startup company. What's your product? Who are you? Who do you want to be? How do you get your product to the market? The market being the jobs that actually pay you to be you. All right? So, you're a CEO. Congratulations. You're the man or woman in charge of your own startup company. How are you going to manage that company? How are you going to think about the decisions and the things you need to do every day to set yourself up for success in the future? How are you going to manage your career and your brand? How are you going to market yourself? Once you know who you want to be and what you want to be, what investments are you going to do? You're going to go get an internship? You're going to go get a master's degree or a PhD? Those are all investment opportunities. Where are you going to spend your resources to set your product up, you, to be successful in the marketplace where you can get paid a lot of money to do what you want to do? All right? And once you figure out what that is, how are you advertising yourself? Are you out there in the world? Are you on LinkedIn? Are you trying to network? Right? Your business, you're trying to sell yourself. So think about it. Engineering meets business. This is about you now. This is about you as an engineer. How can you establish yourself in the business world? And what are you doing every day? Every company has a board. So who's your board? Who are the people you're going to rely on to help you make tough decisions? There isn't a company out there that just goes rogue and starts making decisions without sitting down with a committee and say, what's right? What are we trying to achieve? What makes sense? Have we thought about things in the right vein? Our company, our CEO, he's chairman of the board. He has a group of people that advise him. There's a group of people that'll say no to him. All right? He doesn't have complete authority to do whatever he wants within our organization. But you should think about it. Is it your parents? Is it your friends? Professors? I'll volunteer myself. I'll be on everybody's board in this room if you want me. Which just means you can pick up the phone at any point in time or shoot me an email and say, hey, I got a question. Here's a job opportunity. Is this a good one or not? I won't tell you the answer because I don't know. But I can ask you the right questions to get you thinking about, is it a good opportunity or is it not? All right? You get where I'm going? You need to start to shift your mindset. Think about it as you're already employed, you're already working. How successful you're going to be if you're a freshman 4 or 6 years from now, depending on what path you want to take, or if you're a senior and you're 6 months or 8 months away from the marketplace. What are you doing to get yourself ready? And do you think you're going to be successful? And hold yourself accountable. How many of you have a written down plan that says, here's what I want to do in the next 12 months in order to set my career up for success? Good. It's awesome. And then manage your growth. You don't want to grow too fast. One of the biggest fears I had going through Stryker was I was getting promoted. I was getting to new jobs almost too fast. It sounds silly, right? How could that possibly be? If you could get to the top, wouldn't you just want to be at the top? But what if you're not really ready to be at the top, but people are trying to put you in that role? Are you getting set up to fail because you really don't have the experiences to be successful and functional at a very high level because you haven't lived in the world and you haven't gained the experiences? So just checking a box isn't going to get it done. You actually have to go through it. So if your resume is full of a bunch of empty things because you've just plowed through it too fast, then when somebody sits down and says, tell me about your experience here and what did you get out of it? And if you're only there doing it for 6 months and you really didn't start it, you were just there for a while and you didn't really end it and you don't have any results to show for it, then what value is that placing on your resume if you don't have anything to talk about or show for it? So, I'll leave you with this. I figured I could give you something. I'll give you a volunteer to be a seat on your board. I'll also give you some of my favorite books because I think there's so many things you can be doing outside of the classroom that can set you up for success. We talked about this morning with some of the students, Innovator's Dilemma, an absolute must-read, I think, that talks about disruptive innovation and how if you're not careful, innovations can come that can wipe out complete industries because they don't have the wherewithal to see where new things are coming from. Take CDs, for example. The digital world is completely eliminated for the most part. The Discman. It's gone. Sony is able to capture that and get involved in digital media. But what were we talking about? Kodak earlier today. Kodak essentially doesn't exist anymore. They didn't think in a million years that anybody would ever move away from cameras. Now, I'm not even sure people buy cameras anymore. We just went to Disney World with two of my kids, and my wife made me lug the big camera around so we can get all these great shots. But every time we want to take a picture, I was there and done in about 5 seconds with my phone while she's still getting the camera out of the bag. It's kind of, the world's changing. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, great book. Checklist Manifesto. Just read this probably in the last 6 months, but really talks about how the checklist, as simple as that sounds, has revolutionized certain industries. And I think it's a great way to look at the world and a great way to start to figure out how to mentally organize what you're doing. Seeing the Big Picture is a great financial book, so it's very easy if everybody gets the jitters when you start talking about finances because you think that's way too complex. This is a great way that breaks down what are the key drivers in any business from a financial perspective and tries to give you some breakdowns as to why those financials are important. And then The Art of Innovation is another great book. So my goal is not to stress you out that the world's crazy and there's a lot to think about and you should be preparing all the time. So I say relax, keep calm, go orange, and I'll take any questions.